Now I'm joined by Sir Michael Fabricant, a Conservative Member of Parliament. Michael, welcome to you. Thanks very much for being with us, the MP for Lichfield. Two huge losses for the Conservative Party. How bad is it, do you think?
Well, it's not good, and I expected it to be worse. I actually did anticipate that we'd lose all three, which wouldn't have been that surprising, to be honest with you, looking at the national opinion polls, and also bearing in mind that we are in government and by-elections are always a time to protest.
Yeah, a time to protest, but certainly in Selby and Ainsty, the first Labour win for many decades there, overturning a 19,000 Conservative seat majority, a huge swing to them.
Well, Keir Starmer seemed very, very pleased, and I can't blame him. But, you know, I think it would be unwise for him to be a little bit too smug. And let me explain why. At the time of Tony Blair, when he was leader, we saw many Conservative voters switching and voting Labour, New Labour, for Tony Blair. That hasn't happened this time. What's happened this time in all three constituencies is no switching, but in fact people deciding who are Conservative to stay at home and not to vote. Now, that's not good, because clearly, at least it's not good for the Conservatives, because clearly it allowed Labour to win in the north and the Lib Dems to win in the west. And also, I think there was a little bit of tactical voting, and why not? Amongst the opposition parties, Lib Dems voting for Labour when they thought they could win, and vice versa.
Well, that's not what Labour would say. Labour would say, actually, we did turn a lot of Conservative voters, traditional Conservative voters, who did turn out for us in Selby and Ainsty. And actually, the point for them is that they need to show on a national scale, when it comes to a general election, that they can get those votes in traditional Tory heartlands where they don't have that much of a Labour base. And they did do that there, didn't they?
No, they didn't. When you look at the total vote, actually, for Labour, it wasn't any much higher. And it's all, I don't really know how Labour can say, no, it didn't happen.
But they had a swing of more than 24%.
Yeah, because simply the Conservatives stayed at home. Now, that's not good, but this is not switching. This is not like when it was Tony Blair. Far from it. All that's happened is that Labour voters went out and voted, and Conservative voters stayed at home. Of course, it still means a win. And if that were to happen at a general election, Labour would get in with the landslide that it seems to think it will have. But it's worrying. It's worrying for Labour, and it's worrying for the Conservatives too, because what's very clear in these three by-elections is that they're not at all typical about what might happen at a general election when there are larger turnouts. There's no room for complacency by the Conservatives, and the Conservative Party has to deliver on its promises, a bit less talk and a bit more do. But if I was Labour, I might appear to be complacent, but I tell you what, behind the scenes, I'd be worried.
OK, how worried are you? You've got a, what, 23,000 majority?
Well, if there were a by-election in Lichfield, we'd probably lose it. And you know what? In 1990, there was a by-election in Lichfield, and it went Labour. And then at the next general election, 18 months later, it went back, and people voted me in, the Conservative. So, look, what happened at by-elections happened in... what happened in Lichfield, rather, happens a lot in by-elections. I'm pleased that we won Uxbridge, and I'm not being complacent. All I'm saying is if Labour is complacent, and it seems that Keir Starmer thinks it's all in the bag, well, we'll have to see, won't we? Because that'll be up to the electorate and up to the government, as I said, to deliver.
It will indeed. Michael Fabricant, thank you very much.